trying to stabilize after shaky starts. The Ravens host the Bengals as 3-point home favorites. Denny, we will begin with the Ravens running game, where J.K. Dobbins saw a much heavier workload in week 4. I said it was likely only because Justice Hill departed mid-game with an injury, but Denny, you fact-checked me in the email. By the way, don't ever humiliate me like that in front of everyone else. You pointed out that Justice Hill actually departed later in the game, and he was getting a bigger workload before that. So just what do we think we can expect going forward from J.K.?
I actually didn't mean to fact check you in front of everybody.
No. It actually is fine.
I'm sorry.
What do we expect from J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah. All right. Listen. J.K. Dobbins last week finally saw an increased snap share. He had the 6th highest expected fantasy points among running backs in week 4. He saw 41% of the team's rushing attempts, while Lamar Jackson saw 34%. This is a huge shift in really how the Ravens offense has been operating through the early season. Importantly, J.K. Dobbins saw 4 of the team's 6 goal line snaps. He only ran a route on 37% of the dropbacks versus Buffalo last week, but really, I feel like, no Baltimore running back is going to be super involved, and we're not going to be banking on huge PPR production out of that backfield. So that doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, I think that Dobbins is back-ish, and maybe Gus Edwards will come in there and ruin things eventually. But for this week, I think it's clearly him. Justice Hill I believe is going to be out with a hamstring injury. That leaves Mike Davis as the RB2. So I think Dobbins has a pretty safe floor.
Has there been an update on Gus Edwards? He has been designated to return practicing. John Harbaugh said we'll see how it looks. It doesn't sound like he's going to play this week, though. And
when you get designated return, you have a 21-day window to actually be officially brought back to the roster. And teams can obviously use the entirety of that 21-day window. And when your coach is like, yeah, he seems like he's kind of on the right path to maybe playing sometime in the year of our Lord 2022. I don't think we'll see him this week. I think he'll come back and maybe be Gus Edwards is a really good runner, but I think he'll come back and be maybe a part of the offense in weeks 7, 8, 9. Right. So when you say he's back-ish, I feel pretty good because the offense has just been putting up numbers. So even if he isn't going to get more than 15 carries or whatever, I call me crazy. I want to get excited about seeing J.K. Dobbins. He's a good runner.
Yeah, you could do worse.
I didn't jam him into the top 24, but he is getting close to that point, especially with bye weeks about to begin, where there was no light at the end of the J.K. Dobbins tunnel after week 3. Suddenly there is after week 4. But there wasn't that many explosive plays from J.K. Dobbins in week 4. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the metrics are not fantastic so far for Dobbins.
Yeah, his production came on two red zone, goal line touchdowns. He got a little shovel pass that he bumped in, another goal line touchdown. He got blown up at the goal line. He could have actually had 3 as well.
Yeah.
So, it was just the usage was strong, but we're still waiting for him to be J.K. Dobbins. But I'm kind of willing to bet on him eventually becoming the J.K. Dobbins we want to see.
Kerrane, I have a different question. It seemed like you had some J.K. Dobbins thoughts, or am I just misreading your face? Are you trying to stifle laughter?
I was still trying to stifle laughter from earlier. I felt like it was in church or something where you're not allowed to laugh.
Yeah, no, we really sorry to the listeners. We do take them behind the email curtain fairly often. I feel like
I hope they enjoy it.
Yeah, we take them behind the email curtain here on the Rotoworld Football Show. Kerrane, my other side, it's been a slow start for Jamar Chase. It's been a very hot start for T. Higgins. Is there anything interesting in their underlying usage? Or is it just, as it appears, 2 elite players kind of alternating production? What's going on with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins?
Yeah, so I would note that Jamar Chase ran a route on 97% of dropbacks last week. He's at 99% for the season. T. Higgins was at 83% last week. So there's been I've seen some stuff on Twitter, people noting when these guys are out on the field together, Higgins is outproducing him. I think, even with that, you should expect Chase to be out there more, which, definitely matters. And then, but when you look at their per route volume this year, Higgins has seen more target volume per route, which is, pretty important. Here's the thing. So I dug in a little bit, and when you look at which guy is facing double teams, it's heavily tilted towards Chase. Chase has been double teamed on 55 routes this year, trailing only Cooper Kupp. Wow. That's 30% of his routes. Higgins is at 20%. So that 10% difference is comparable to the difference between Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, who have an 11% difference. It's comparable to the difference between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who are also at an 11% difference. So I think you kind of think of them similar to like a Metcalf Lockett, where, you know, we're maybe not going to be able to predict who's going to have the big game, but it's still generally going to be driven more by Chase than Higgins. And I think in a game like this, where it's got a very high ceiling in terms of the total, we have a high ceiling in terms of what the Bengals offense might be able to do through the air against the secondary. I think Chase still has like a materially higher ceiling than Higgins, because he's driving the offense forward. And then Higgins is able to benefit from just how good Chase is in a really impactful way, because he's also a star. But I think the talent difference here still, to me, points to Chase being the top guy.
And you could maybe say the same thing about Higgins, but with Chase, it's important to remember too, he was having a really disappointing game last week. I think he had 3 catches for 35 yards, and it was still disappointing in the end. You know, he catches like a 40-yard pass in the closing moments of the fourth quarter, and suddenly he's at 81 yards. And just not that was a great game for fantasy managers, but just a reminder, like, Jamar Chase can win fantasy weeks on 1 to 2 plays, because one of them can be a 70-yard touchdown. And basically just keep the faith in Jamar. This is actually a pep talk to myself. Please, God. Kyle, Rashad Bateman has missed back-to-back practices with a mid-foot injury, probably not going to play for this very high total game. Are there any intriguing Ravens pass catchers not named Mark Andrews? Denny and I kind of talked about Devin Duvernay earlier in the week, who maybe is the only guy worth talking about. Any interesting Devin Duvernay facts and maybe a non-Duvernay name?
Yeah, I mean, for the Duvernay side of it, he actually looks pretty solid. I mean, he's 3rd on the team in air yards. He's actually 2nd on the team in yards per route run. I think that's more of a Lamar Jackson plus Devin Duvernay role kind of stat, where when Devin Duvernay comes on, he runs deep routes and he gets targeted. But if he's going to continue running deep routes whenever he's on the field now more than ever, I kind of like him as a wide receiver 3 type flex option. After that, I do think it'll be sort of by committee, in the sense of Patrick Ricard will get a few more snaps. Isaiah Likely, the backup tight end, who's actually played a decent role in the offense, will get a few more snaps. Maybe if you're down bad in a sort of, I don't think Isaiah Likely is on the top 20 range of tight ends, but if you're down bad in a tight end premium sense, you're looking at this game, has a high total, it has possibly no Rashad Bateman. I actually don't hate Isaiah Likely, but I really do think it is a strong committee by everyone who isn't Rashad Bateman, if Rashad Bateman doesn't play, other than Devin Duvernay, who's been clearly the second receiver, which traditionally for Baltimore hasn't been a great option, because they use their tight end 1 as a wide receiver 1. They use their wide receiver 1 as a clear wide receiver 2. But if we get Devin Duvernay playing a ton of routes, deep shot Lamar Jackson, like, I think there's a chance for him to be a wide receiver 3 this week.
Can I give folks a quick just snippet or some insight into how much Devin Duvernay has been owning the regression bros?
Dude, it's hard.
This guy has converted 99% of his air yards through 4 games. Okay, this is impossible.
He also kick return touchdowns. So the week that you're like, man, he caught 0 passes for 0 yards and 0 touchdowns, and then he gets you 6 points anyways. Yeah. I think he actually did more than that week. But he also has 3 scores plus the kick return touchdown. I think he's a legit good player who just is in a specialized role, but that role should grow this week.
Are you guys at all concerned about the offense with Bateman out? Because Bateman's been super efficient, 11.0 yards per target, quite good.
Bateman's really
I guess I'm a little bit more bearish that Duvernay is going to continue that efficiency. And then, like, also, even if he does, Tylan Wallace was operating as a deep threat last week a little bit. And Demarcus Robinson was out there. Like, I feel like that's a pretty big downgrade in terms of the ability to stretch the defense. So I don't know. It makes me a little nervous, more nervous than I would be. I guess I want to be really, really excited about Mark Andrews, and Bateman being out would be maybe a reason to be a little more cautious.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.